Welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to take these USB hard drives, this Raspberry Pi 4, and build myself a network attached storage device built right into the truck so we can back up all of our photos and videos and other stuff while on the road, off-grid here in Mexico. Let me show you how I did it. Alright, so you'll have to forgive the wind noise outside. Got another hurricane blowing through, and while we are up in the mountains, we are getting some pretty nasty winds and stuff, so hopefully you guys don't hear too much of that. Let's get right into it here. As you know, we make videos for YouTube, but we also shoot stock photography and stock video, and that takes up a lot of hard drives. And while my laptop computer has 3 solid-state 2 terabyte drives in it, those fill up pretty quick, and we don't always have data connectivity to upload that stuff to a cloud-based service like Google Photos or Backblaze or AWS S3, any of those popular backup services. So we need to back up stuff on the road. And so we carry portable hard drives. And I've got quite a collection of them. Some have been shipped back to Canada. Some were left in Canada when we were there a year ago. But generally, we have drives and they back stuff up. And that's great. Except it's a real nuisance to dig out the cable and remember to do it and plug it in and you know, go through the steps of backing up all your stuff. So the goals of the project are to quickly and easily connect to these drives over the network and back up our photos and videos from our phones, cameras, and video editing software. When we're working with videos and they're done, we need to offline those videos and back them up somewhere else off of our main computer. And so we're going to use a network attached storage device, or NAS, N-A-S. There are many off-the-shelf options available. Synology, G-Tech, Western Digital, I've had some of those in the past, and I've even built my own NAS systems in rack mount servers in our basement when I had a house. And so there's lots of other options available, but for our use on the road, these little portable drives are handy and a nice size, and I think they're probably more rugged because they're built for laptop or portable use. So in that way they're more rugged than a 3.5-inch drive in a bigger enclosure, like a G-Tech enclosure. So anyone who's watched the channel for any length of time will know I'm also a fan of the Raspberry Pi. This is a Raspberry Pi 4 4GB version. And I also had shipped to me here in Mexico this Argon 1 aluminum enclosure. Getting stuff shipped to Mexico is really a pain because there's like 18. Alright, so as I've said, I've set up plenty of RAID systems in the past, or NAS I meant to say. NAS is with RAIDs, I guess, also. But this is going to be a fairly basic, not really a hardened network NAS like you'd find in a commercial enterprise environment, but it's going to do our needs just fine. I have set this up a little bit already, kind of baler twined and wire and garbage all over the table, but I'm going to finish the installation and then give you a little tour of all the benefits and why you might even consider this in your home. I'm sure many of you have little drives with pictures and videos and movie files of whatever stuff you have, and to be able to access it from your phone over the network is a really nice thing to have. So let's get into it. Alright, a little bit of this old Tony theme going on here, but let me give you an overview of all the hardware and how I'm connecting it. I have 4 Seagate portable drives. 2 of them are 4 terabyte and 2 5 terabyte drives. I've also got this cheapo USB-C hard drive enclosure. Right now I've just got a 500 gig drive with some old data in there that I want to have access to, as well as 1 terabyte Western Digital drive and a 250 gig NVMe drive, which used to reside in the old Lappy, but I've got this nice enclosure with the USB-C jack on there. Not fully thrilled with it yet. I think it might be a really slow memory controller in there. And then to connect them all, a USB-C hub that is powered, which I have yet to modify. And then this is a 4-port USB hub that has a switch built in, and it switches between these 2 hosts. So my intention with this is to have one of them connected to the Raspberry Pi and the other connected to this USB-C, HDMI, and gigabit Ethernet adapter through a USB-C extension cable, and have that running up to my laptop so that I can switch these drives over to being connected directly to the laptop if I don't want to go through network, if I've got a ton of files to move. To power all of this, I'm going to be running it directly off of our lithium iron phosphate battery bank. 12 volts comes in here, just a little bit of a splitter, probably temporary terminal block there just to split. Got a little fuse on there, and then that runs to this 12 to 24 volt input, 5 volt output at 10 amp power supply. I've got a bunch of these in the truck, probably 6 or 7, running various tasks, and I like them a lot. They work really well. And what else? Oh yeah, lastly, I do have Wi-Fi and 10100 Ethernet in the truck already, but I don't have gigabit. So I got a cheap D-Link gigabit router, pardon me, it's a switch, which will just have probably just my laptop and the Pi is all that's going to benefit from gigabit in here, but good to have a wired connection for some of that stuff. Alright, the last piece of the puzzle is the Raspberry Pi. I bought 2 Raspberry Pi 4s last time we were rolling through the States, just to upgrade some of the stuff we had on the truck already. I did not get around to that because mostly the workload that those Pi 3s were doing was pretty small, so I didn't need them. But I do have a Pi 4, 2 in fact, so I'm going to use a Pi 4 for this project. And here you can see the Argon 1 case. This is an aluminum enclosure, and it has breakouts here for the micro HDMI. The Pi 4 has 2 4K HDMI outputs, and this normally they're on the side like this here, and so this case has breakouts that route them from here off to the back so that all of the connectors are conveniently on the back there, as you see. Like I said, it's a nice aluminum enclosure. It does have standoffs, I guess you'd call them, with thermal tape that connect right to the processor and the hot bits on the Raspberry Pi 4, so it transfers that heat up into the enclosure itself. And there is a small fan in here too, which is really nice, and software temperature controlled, so it comes on at the pre-prescribed temperatures. It does have this really nice, actually, magnetic door that clicks on there, but that breaks out all of the header pins off the Pi also. Okay, step 1, get all the junk off the table. Now, I'm going to have to wire this kind of temporarily in a temporary installation sort of way, because supplies and availability of materials is kind of scarce down here. So I'm going to be using this lid off of a Eurocrate tote to fasten everything to. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Suffice to say that this lid, it's flexible plastic. It's not ideal, but it's the best I can come up with in the situation we're in. And it fits perfectly in the spot I intend to hide this stuff. So I'm going to, you can see I've got some markings here. Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to go punch a bunch of holes in it, and that will be to run nylon zip ties through to hold everything in place, and I'll be back in a jiffy. Alright guys, got a bunch of holes, as you can see, punched in here in various places, and now I will lay out the bits and bobs. Now, the arrangement of this stuff may not seem like the most logical, but the place, which is top secret, where I'm placing this lid, is has other items in this area. So I've got keep out zones marked here, and certain restrictions for how I have to lay this out, plus the length of the cables I have to work with. So that's why it's perhaps not the most obvious layout. Now the next step I'm going to do is just use a little bit of 3M VHB to put just a little bit of friction between these items and the board. And then I've got a big old packet of zip ties here to really secure it down. And really the only thing the 3M tape is for is to keep it from shifting and moving or sliding out. So let's get to it. Alright guys, got her all sort of buttoned up there mostly. The drives are all two-sided taped plus the zip ties there, as well as the router and this hub. But the Pi and some of these other lightweight things, the zip tie was enough to hold it, and except for these loose wires, everything's nice and stable. Next, I'm going to modify this 4-port hub. Like I said, it has 4 inputs, USB 3 high-speed inputs, and it has a push button that switches between these 2 outputs to 2 different hosts. So I'm going to have this connected, one of them to the Raspberry Pi, the other will go, like I mentioned, to this splitter deal, which also has Cat5 and HDMI via USB-C through an extension up through the base of the table, and then under this tablecloth here you can see there's a hole there where the USB will come out and just pop into the computer. And I'm modifying this such that the 2 indicator LEDs will be known by the Pi, the state of the LED, and the Pi will be able to push the button and switch between itself and the laptop. That's pretty boring, so I'm going to do that off camera. And lastly, as you can imagine, most things you buy, like this switch and so on, come with power adapters to run off of 110. I don't want to have to run my inverter all the time with power bars and all sorts of garbage, so I'm going to lob this cable off just long enough to reach its target, cut it, and solder some eyelets on there to connect up to this terminal strip. Alright guys, this is as far as I'm going to get today. The storms are brewing and I got to help prepare for the storm, but in brief, power comes in here, it goes to the 12 volt to 5 volt 10 amp regulator where it splits to this terminal block, then runs up to the gigabit switch, the 4 in 2 out USB hub with the switching option here. I also have wired in these sense wires for the 2 host LEDs and the switch button. Those are on header pins plugged to the Raspberry Pi, so that will be able to control which set of devices are sent to which of the 2 hosts. Another USB hub up here in the shadows you can't really see. Then I've got just a USB SATA enclosure for random hard drives. I've only zip tied it in because I might want to take that drive out and switch it at some point. Then I've got an NVMe solid state drive here. I might switch these drives, the mechanical drives, have them switch off at some point and leave the Pi running with the NVMe solid state disk. Have not decided yet, but this is all fairly temporary anyway. And then of course all 4 of the Seagate 5 terabyte and 4 terabyte drives. As you can see, everything's pretty stable and solid, and this is going to fit nicely in the spot I had planned for it. So that's going to be it for today. Tomorrow, a new shirt, maybe not a new shirt, and then we'll dig into the software and give you guys a little bit of a demo. Welcome back everyone. It's been a few days since I recorded those last segments, but let's get right back into it here. The first thing I want to do is show you some examples of how we are going to utilize this. So the first obvious one is going to be our photo-based, or rather our local photo backup. So here, take some photos, memorable, and then one of me. Perfect. Now, using a Android app, or it's available for Android or iOS, but I'm running Android here. It's called PhotoSync. Now, you don't need to open it, as I will be doing now. It'll do this if it's running in the background on Android anyway. But I have it set up so that when I connect it to the charger, you see here it pops up, starting auto transfer. Just gives you a warning so you can abort if you want to for whatever reason. And what that is doing now is going to transfer all of my photos and videos from either Kara's phone or my phone directly to the NAS hard drives here. Now I'll pull up this screen up here, and it's too big. That's better. So you can see all of these photos are transferring, and they're showing up on the Everlanders NAS, PhotoSync, Google Pixel camera. And so that's the first step in the journey for these photos. The next step for these files is a program called Drop It, and you can set it to monitor a directory and handle files based on your liking. So here I have an association, they call it. It's just a profile for how it's going to handle files. I've named it Photo and Video Backup. And basically it'll take any AVI, M4V, MKV, MOV, MP4, etc., and JPEGs, all images and video, and it will move them to the destination folder, which I have set as E, phone backup, and this wildcard declaration here is the year, which it will rename them 2020, then the month modified, then the month short modified, which basically puts it in this PC. And so then I'll show you how it sorts them. It goes to E, phone backup, 2020, November, and there's the photos. Perfect. Okay, the next app, as you can see, is very modern. It's an old Microsoft utility called RichCopy, and basically you click here in the options and you can say copy E to Z or Z, and you can set all of these parameters. If the file size is different, if the timestamp is different. In this case, all I need is to set if the file does not exist in the destination, so I can run that. And as you can see here in the bottom, it starts scanning through the files, checking if there's anything on my local drive that doesn't exist on the NAS, and when it finds those files, it will copy them over so that everything's backed up there. So, as you can see, it's found a bunch of files. These ones, as you can see by the title, OpenMediaVault NAS, these are the video files that I'm working on for this project right now, and it's copying a backup to this drive. And then from there, OpenMediaVault can mirror drives from one to another, meaning it copies the drive. So I have two identical copies should one of those disks fail. Okay, so that's sort of how stuff gets backed up automatically and sorted. Obviously, I have access to all of these drives and shares over the network, as you can see in this screen here. And I've mapped some of the drives, the network drives, as mapped network drives so that the operating system sees them just as a local drive. Now, if I go in here, of course, everything is being sent over the network through gigabit Ethernet to this machine, but if I want to switch to USB, I could, of course, just press the button, but I'm going to use my handy-dandy Python script that remotely presses this button via the GPIO pin. And now we can see I have this cold storage drive, which is the black one, and the Video Vault drive, which is the silver drive here, connected locally, and everything that was available over the network is now available here. So I hope this would be significantly faster than accessing over the network, but it turns out when I run a Crystal Disk Mark benchmark on that drive, it's about the same speed, not too much faster. And that has to do with the NTFS file system is slower running on a non-NTFS native operating system, namely Linux. It is actually faster if I run XFS or ext4 file systems, which I have on these two drives, but that's a more complex story for another day. I'll maybe make an extended version of this video for our YouTube channel members. Big shout out to all the guys, their names whipping by now. So I really appreciate all the channel members chipping in, and that gives me the pat on the back to keep making videos like this. So thank you to all these guys here. And now let's get into just kind of a brief overview of how I set up the Raspberry Pi. There are tons of great tutorials online already, so I don't need to make another one, but I'll briefly go through and show you, and of course all the links to the software I'm using will be in the description. Raspberry Pi 4, you need to install Raspbian. OpenMediaVault recommends the light version and the most recent version, which at the time of filming was Raspbian Buster. So I have installed Raspbian Buster Lite, which just means it doesn't have a window environment, environment. It's just command line, so all matrixy. From there, you need to install OpenMediaVault, and I'll have a link in the description for where I found it. It's open source and free and easy, but you do need to go through a few command line interface commands to get it all installed properly. And then everything goes well, you should be presented with a excellent web interface as I'm showing here. So it's got lots of advanced stuff, more stuff in here than I'm going to talk about, but very basically it shows you your memory usage, CPU percentage usage, all that sort of stuff. Boring. The business end is down here under storage disks. Click on that and it queries all of the buses, and then we've got these drives here connected, as I've mentioned a plethora of times already. And that's pretty boring. There's not much to do in here. The next thing you need to do is set up file systems. So as you can see, I've got a selection of different file systems formatted to these various drives. XFS was said to be a very fast Unix file system. I don't find it's any faster than ext4 in my practices, in my testing. So I've got XFS, ext4, NTFS are the two original drives, and I've left them that way just because I can unplug them and plug them directly into my machine, as I demonstrated, and still have access to them in Windows. And yeah, so you need to have your drive set up, and you just create a partition if you have a new drive. The tutorials do a much better job of explaining that than I have. Then you need to set up users, so you click add, enter your passwords. So I've got Jason and Kara and Pi in there, and then shared folders. And this is the part where lots of people stumble. They see lots of help on online forums where they're running into problems where they haven't set up shared folders and users and assigning the users to the shared folders. But basically I've got all of my shared folders listed in here, just descriptive names that help sort things out, and the device it's written to, and so on. And then the next fun area is the services. These are the different ways I can connect to this whole NAS system. DLNA is for streaming video and movie files to compatible players. This is actually a neat thing. It's a downloader app, so that if you've got a really big download that you need to get, you can, like a 3 gigabyte application, for example, you can go in here, add a file, and let it download to the NAS locally, close your computer and go to sleep, and it'll get it when it has time, or as it can. It just trickles it in. So that's kind of a neat little deal. FTP, NFS, rsync, Samba, which is the Windows file sharing that I'm primarily using, and also USB backup is a neat function I hope to implement here soon. Basically, how I'm going to use that is I can connect whatever SD card I have via a USB reader, and it will clone that card to a share on the NAS. I haven't set any of that up yet, but that's pretty neat. Alright, then under diagnostics here we can see some system information, performance statistics of how loaded I've had the CPU, and network interface utilization. All those sorts of stats are handy to have. If you have lots of users on your network accessing these files, that might be interesting to you, but for our use, this is going to be just fine. I think I'm going to leave it at that for this video. Our members only video will be posted up here, over here I mean. And a giant shout out to all of our channel members whose names you can see here. These guys are legends, chipping in a few bucks every month to give me a pat on the back and help me dedicate some time to making videos like this. There will be a more in-depth user video for those users, for those channel members, in the members only section. So that'll be coming out soon. If you're a channel member, you can check that out. There will be a link up there once that's done. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.